So we still got lots of time on this. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the Bitcoin difficulty adjustment?
I mean, we were at what, 90 exahashes in January, and now we're back just under 90. So, Bitcoin was more than secure back in January, and well, throughout the past sort of 5 years. So we really don't need to worry. It can drop significantly more before we would need to worry. As Josh said, it's overly secured. And this, I mean, we've just lost the mining pump we had because the price was pumping. So, all these extra efforts were going into increasing that hash rate. Now, I know that the Chinese miners have all turned their miners off, but they're shipping them around the world right now. Those miners aren't going to be idle for long. And they're going to find more friendly jurisdictions and probably a more sustainable, realistic way of mining Bitcoin, rather than, because in China it was predominantly government subsidized coal power plants, which were mining the Bitcoin with runoff from practically free energy, which was completely unsustainable. And now all that mining will move around the world to places where it is sustainable. So no, we don't need to worry. We're just back where we were in January, despite a huge amount of these Chinese miners turning their mining off. And yeah, they'll just find new places to set up shop. And then, when it comes to more sustainable mining, of course, we've got El Salvador and their volcanoes. So hopefully maybe some of the miners will make their way to El Salvador and build out the infrastructure there and strap those miners to those volcanoes. Limitless power.
It's interesting, Ben. I'm reminded of something that Vitalik Buterin said in a speech a long time ago. And he said that the minute you finish making an ASIC or an ASIC chip, you want to plug it in right away. So the factory in China, you want to walk it across the street to the factory where you mine the Bitcoin. And there seems to be nothing economically, nothing scientific that you could change this. Whenever you put the miner in a box, you start losing money because you're shipping it somewhere and it's not mining while it's shipping.
That was more true back then when miners were being updated quicker, whereas now we're sort of butting up against Moore's law and miners don't change too much now, so you can move them around the world a little bit. But yeah, that's a funny one, that most of the miners are produced in China, so now there's going to be that downtime.
Let's bang the libertarian bell, because the only thing that could change that is government intervention. The government of China stopped their people from being the most convenient place to mine these Bitcoin.
So thank you, China.
There you go. And moving on to the exit question, building on what Adam McBride was saying, if China banning Bitcoin, finally banning it, kicking the miners out, really doing it this time, we've been through 100 other China bans. If that's the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin, and now it's happened, and we already went down because of the correction and the price doesn't seem to care and difficulties coming back, what else is there? What else can happen to Bitcoin that's bad? So give me a bad thing that could happen to Bitcoin, another country, some kind of meteor attack. Let's go to Dan Eve, Crypto Raptor.
Well, I think Prof. Wally's brought up a good point, which is, what if they compel the ISPs to ban port 8333 and just keep on trolling and rebanning the ports like that? That would become a wicked game of cat and mouse. That's definitely quite a potential threat, but I think China's been kind of on and off for years, so it's almost like you could see it coming and the market knew about it. The market kind of shrugged it off in a way, and saw the benefits over the negative sides.
Martin Wismayer.
I'm not too worried about that, Dan. I've been running an open port 8333 for years and noticed about 100 nodes connecting to my node here at home. Recently, I've switched to Umbrel for my node software, which by default blocks port 8333. And there is only 10 nodes connected, but still it's connected to the network. And it connects over Tor. So from an ISP or a government perspective, I'm watching a lot of dubious porn on dubious sites or something, but they don't know what's happening because everything is going through Tor. So blocking port 8333 will only temporarily, I think, for about 70%, if all the countries in the world would do that at the same time, for 70% of the nodes would have a problem. But I think within, say, a week or so, all of them will be running behind Tor. Right now, there's about 30% of all Bitcoin nodes running over Tor. Of course, if Tor has issues, then it will affect the Bitcoin network, but I'm not too worried about that. It is something to consider. If you're running an Umbrel node by default, everything is over Tor. I believe other node implementations do the same. If you do want to enable access to your Bitcoin core over port 8333, just forward that port from in your router, forward it to whatever internal IP address your node has. So then you can still contribute on the open clear network while you do all your transactions over Tor. That I do think the biggest issue for Bitcoin in general would be if, well, that's happening now, regulators start blocking on and off ramps. So it makes it harder to change your worthless fiat into valuable crypto coins. And that is something you're seeing more and more. So we'll need more fiat on ramps and off ramps, basically, that are decentralized. I think this is something that really needs work. I think Bisq network is one of the few ones that does it now, if not the only one. All the other ones just all KYC, AML, send us GovUp an ID, send us a selfie holding a little note that says, I want to be verified on Bittrex or whatever, you know. So that is, I think, the biggest risk to Bitcoin right now. But positive side, they can't do that everywhere in the world. El Salvador and other countries will start, you know, like using it as legal tender, so it will be impossible to block everywhere at the same time. But I think this is something that will, within a few years, become more difficult because of the FATF travel rule and all the other new accounting requirements that are being implemented throughout, like the US and Europe. But we'll see. We'll deal with it when it comes, but we're not going to let them shut down our network.
Well, I, for one, would welcome this kind of attack on Bitcoin. It's time to harden up the network and get those ports fixed. I even think they should go so far as to ban all QR codes. And then we'll do like Andreas said, we'll embed them in kitty photos, and we'll send around little kitty photos of cats, right? Kittens, baby kittens. Thank you. But yeah, there'll be kitty photos with Bitcoin in them. And oh my God, how are they going to stop that? Also want to give a shout out to Umbrel. That's a good job software configuring it to use Tor by default. People don't even know what they're doing. If they get it installed, it just uses Tor. That's the way things should be. Adam McBride, what else could they throw?
Right. On-ramp, off-ramp is the thing that could happen right now that would be the biggest risk. Along with that, I would say, you know, the U.S., if the U.S. Just made it illegal, that would, you know, crush Bitcoin. It wouldn't end Bitcoin, but it would crush it to a large degree. Just because if they made it illegal, you know, 95% of the U.S. population just wouldn't touch it because they don't want to get in trouble with the IRS, right? But other than that, it seems very, very unlikely now. So I think we're good to go.
I would also like to see the U.S. That's a good example. Ben Ark, what else could they throw at Bitcoin? Or Josh, are you ready?
That's which one?
I'll go to Ben. Sorry.
I think I don't think it's unrealistic to think that the US could ban or try and ban Bitcoin, and make it illegal to use Bitcoin. They seem to be ramping up to start a bit of a scrap with Bitcoin as they lose that USD hegemony over the Central and South American countries, which they've controlled for so long. And other countries joining in the fray as well. So that I think that will be the next big battle, is big nation states trying to ban the use of Bitcoin. And they'll use things like the Colonial Pipeline ransomware hack as an excuse, which they're already, you know, trying to do now. So yeah, I think that would be bad for Bitcoin, but it's anti-fragile. So what's that phrase by Thingy Bobby, that the network sees censorship like and roots around it? What's the phrase?
Sees censorship as damage and routes around it.
That's the one. Thank you, Thomas.
Let's go to Josh Sigala. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, terriblism, basically. Some terriblist will, you know, do something terrible and then demand Bitcoin for it, and everyone they'll use the or it could be a false flag. You never know what they do. They just run some old game and then and say that it's terrible, and then everyone will look at you like, what, you're in Bitcoin, you're helping the terriblists, and you're like, but there hasn't been any terriblists since we've had COVID. Why all of a sudden, and then you can go down a rabbit hole of reasons. But I think that's probably what could definitely put a dent in. It's the psychology of people. Like, they don't want to be associated to anything terrible, and this is a typical modus operandi of power groups. That they associate something with something really bad, and then if you stand up for that thing, then you're doing something really bad. It's like the ultimate straw man. When really you could say the same thing for shoes. The terrorists wore shoes. You also wear shoes, so you can do the same thing. But of course, that just sounds ridiculous. But when it comes to Bitcoin, that could sound not very ridiculous,
Man, Josh, you're 100% right, dude. That actually is 100% right. I mean, we also saw that coming with the greenies all coming in, and the movement just by a whole swath of people, like, Bitcoin's evil because it kills Mother Nature. You saw that happening, and Elon pointed it out, and I think that is at least been put on the back burner. But to Josh's point, it's right as rain, man. Imagine if, I don't know, some kids get kidnapped tomorrow, 5 kids in the United States, and the ransomers, they demand Bitcoin in exchange for the kids. Good Lord. I mean, you realize it's silly, it's stupid to associate one with the other, but that's the way human nature is, and our society is completely susceptible to that. That's a great point, Josh.
Yeah,
I'm always blaming US dollars for kidnappers and those damn Vera bonds. They're always, it's the Vera bonds' fault. Go ahead, Dan.
So to any seedy people out there, if you're gonna kidnap or do any crazy stuff, use like Dogecoin or something, please, for the love of God.
Exactly. Actually, they should just demand dollars, $100 bills.
Yeah,
$100
even better.
$100 bills.